On this episode, I'm going to talk about parvovirus, a serious threat to dogs.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Val Talks Pets, the forum for pet parents and enthusiasts alike. Having been in the pet industry for over 10 years now, I'm going to share with you issues and questions that arise as I work with pet parents on a day-to-day basis. I am not a veterinarian, but I do have certifications in canine, feline, small animal, fish and herptile, and avian health and nutrition from the University of California, Davis Extension.
What is parvovirus, or parvo as often referred to? Wikipedia states canine parvovirus is a contagious virus mainly affecting dogs and wolves. CPV, canine parvovirus, is highly contagious and is spread from dog to dog by direct contact with the feces. Vaccines can prevent this infection, but mortality can reach 91% in untreated cases. Treatment often involves veterinary hospitalization. PetMD also clarifies that the feces doesn't have to actually be present. The fact that the infected feces was on a surface can still have the virus present and therefore create infection. This means, according to PetMD, the contamination could be on the ground, in a kennel, on someone's hands, objects, or even clothing. A dog can carry the virus on their fur or paws. The worst part is the virus can last on surfaces for months, even years, and is resistant to many disinfectants. Apparently, diluted bleach can work. The incubation period before symptoms appear is about 3 to 7 days. According to the American Veterinary Medical Association, the virus is also resistant to heat, cold, humidity, and drying, and can survive in the environment for long periods. I remember my dad thought it was fine to let his dog sniff the whole way on its walk. I was always against this and have been mindful of any of my dogs sniffing outside of our own environment. As well, if a puppy or dog contracts parvo, the treatment is actually more to supporting the dog to actually fight it off with their own immune system. Parvo affects the intestinal tract and bone marrow the most. The heart muscle can also be damaged in very young puppies. All dogs and puppies, in particular, are susceptible to parvo, but according to the American Veterinary Medical Association, certain breeds are more susceptible. Rottweilers, Dobermans, Bull Terriers, German Shepherds, and English Springer Spaniels are on the list. I have to say, I did not know that parvo could be that specific. Okay, so what are the first symptoms that a dog will present with if they have been infected with parvo? The earliest signs of parvo are lethargy, loss of appetite, vomiting, severe, often bloody diarrhea, abdominal pain and bloating, fever, or low body temperature hypothermia. I have encountered 2 people that have purchased a puppy that when they got it home, within 12 hours, the dog was spewing bloody diarrhea. These pups were raced to emergency vet care, and in both cases, the pups had parvo. One pup was purchased from a pet store. One was purchased from a so-called breeder. I have also had conversations with some puppy purchasers who had some of the early signs showing and were in process to see the vet about the issues, and it seemed that the symptoms were leading to parvo. However, it was good that the new pet parents were heading right away to the vet as intestinal parasites could cause vomiting, bloat, and lethargy. So getting the correct diagnosis is imperative. In order to diagnose parvo, the veterinarian will need to do a fecal test. They will use the ELISA test, which stands for Enzyme-Linked Immunosorbent Assay. This test is usually quite accurate, but if further testing is required, the PCR test may be conducted. This stands for polymerase chain reaction. This test and blood work will confirm the presence of parvo. The blood test can confirm a low white blood cell count indicative of parvo. As well, the electrolyte levels may be low. Clinical signs of a parvo infection may not show for 4 to 5 days, and within this time, the dog will shed the virus in its feces. The virus will continue to be shed while the dog is ill and for approximately 10 days after recovery. When a dog has been diagnosed with parvo, the treatment and intervention has to be fast. The dog may and most often is hospitalized so that treatments may be consistent and monitoring is intensive. This also means that the dog can be isolated from other dogs. Because there is no cure for parvo, the dog will need everything possible for supportive care to help the dog fight the virus. First, IV fluids will be administered. This will keep the dog hydrated and balance electrolytes. The dog will probably be given anti-nausea drugs to control vomiting. Next, the dog may be given antibiotics. The antibiotics will help fight off any secondary bacterial infections. With the immune system weakened, the dog is susceptible to secondary infections. Pain relief may also be administered. It is also possible that if the dog is unable to eat or can't keep food down, they may end up with a feeding tube. As well, plasma transfusions can help replenish blood proteins. After this, the dog is monitored for fever, blood sugars, and overall condition. Basically, the team is watching for improvement and response to the support treatments. Now, there is a newer treatment for parvo that involves a one-time intravenous injection, CPMA. Parvovirus monoclonal antibody can neutralize the virus and reduce the severity of symptoms. Getting treatment as soon as possible is key with parvo. The dog has to fight off this virus on their own, but the support is also key to survival. With support, the dog has 80 to 90% chance of survival. If there is no treatment, the dog's chances of survival drops to about 5%. Because parvo is so highly contagious, protective gear is necessary while dealing with a dog with parvo to ensure the virus is not being transported on clothing or hands. A human cannot contract parvo from a dog, but it is important to not spread the virus to prevent other dogs from being infected. Once a dog has essentially recovered from parvo, there is aftercare. Following the veterinarian's guidelines is very important. To begin with, keeping the dog hydrated by offering small amounts of water frequently. Pedialyte is beneficial to replenish lost fluids and nutrients. As for food, choosing bland food or easily digestible foods is a good idea. Perhaps just some boiled chicken and rice will suffice. Basically, the idea is to not upset the digestive system. And monitoring is also key, making sure the dog isn't losing weight or if any vomiting or diarrhea is going on. The dog's environment also needs to be cleaned and disinfected. The bleach solution, water solution, is the best option. Anything the dog may have had contact with should be disinfected or thrown out, especially if the dog vomited or soiled the item. As you go along, the vet will be able to recommend vaccines and when it is okay to gradually socialize again. As for long term, making sure the dog has very good nutrition, and I would say supplements to keep them continuously healthy, probiotics and gut calming supplements and immune system boosting supplements would be something I would be looking into. For example, astragalus is an immune system booster and has antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects. Of course, check with a holistic veterinarian for herbal support. A dog or puppy with parvo is in a bad way. Treating a dog with parvo can easily go into the $5,000 range and up. This is why it is so important to be very aware of where you are getting a puppy, for instance. In my episode called Where to Get a Pet, I go over all the red flags you need to be aware of when looking at buying a puppy. The woman who bought the puppy from a pet store regretted every decision she made. First, she fell into the typical heart before head thing, where she saw a puppy of the breed she had always wanted and thought she was saving this little guy from the pet store and paid several $1,000s for the pup with absolutely no credentials for its breed. Well, in quote-unquote purchasing this dog, all she did was open another cage for another puppy mill dog to come in. She got ripped off heavily for the cost, and then within less than 24 hours, the dog presented with parvo. The vet bill was, I think, $6,000, and the pup pretty much almost died. This experience turned this person into a real advocate for stopping the sale of puppies in pet stores, which eventually became bylaw in her community, and she went after the pet store pretty hard. But the bottom line is that she bought a dog with parvo from a pet store that often brought in sick dogs and knowingly sold her a pup that they suspected came with parvo. The other person that had a dog with parvo also fell into several of the big red flags. When they went to the place where the dog was, the so-called breeders, the dog was in a horse trailer with other puppies. They smelled bad and were dirty. They never saw any adult dogs on the property and certainly were not invited into the home to see where the puppies were supposed to have been kept. The puppy seemed a bit tired on the way home, but they chalked that up to the stressful process of being separated from its siblings and the car ride and all the changes. In the middle of the night, the pup was crying terribly, and when they went to check on him, he was vomiting, and then the diarrhea started. By the time they got to the vet in the morning, diarrhea was bloody, and the vet knew straight away what he was up against. What happened here was these people were victims of the rural country puppy mill, run by certain members who use brokers to sell the pups on their behalf, and they get a cut. The pups are generally born in stinky barns to indiscriminate parents, often labs or border collie mixes. Once weaned, the pups are advertised, usually on Kijiji, but other sources as well, fielded by the broker. Once they have people on the hook, the pups go to the broker, who throws them in a horse trailer or some outside kennel. They spin some story to you about how their dog happened to get pregnant, etc., etc. All of this and more is in my episode on where to get a pet. Anyway, the cycle continues, and these people ended up dealing with a dog with parvo. It really is a case of buyer beware. These scenarios really bring home the detriment that shopping for a dog can be, as opposed to adopting from a proper rescue or shelter. The adopt, don't shop adage is so important. In shelters, there are so many lovely dogs, cats, puppies, kittens, and senior pets, those thrown away because it got old or baby was coming in. So many heartbreaking stories. There is no reason to get taken advantage of by being sucked in by the charlatans of the puppy mill world. I also have 2 episodes on puppy mills to help bring light to this underworld. Parvovirus is a very serious illness, and it seems that most of the reports I hear about a dog contracting parvo is through suspect conditions and suspect sellers. But remember to ask your vet about prevention, and also be mindful of all that sniffing going on. Do your research, be aware, be careful, and be informed. Because as I say, knowing is caring.
Thank you for listening to Val Talks Pets. Please remember to follow or subscribe to ensure that you never miss an episode. To really help the show and to make it easier for others to find, please rate and review each episode that you find interesting and helpful. And don't forget that you can also email me at val@valtalkspets.com with topics you would like me to address or with any questions you may have. Also, check out my website at valtalkspets.com and let me know what you think and how we can improve upon it. Thanks for caring!